Hola chicos, hoy voy a explicar el presente de los verbos de cambio radical, stem changing verbs in the present tense. Okay, so as we talked about earlier this week, all verbs have a stem and a root. The stem here is white and the root is red. In Spanish, we have three roots to a verb, AR, ER, and IR. And these are what change to show us subject, as we talked in the first video this week. These are the endings. Remember, AR verbs end in o as a, amos ais an. ER verbs end in o es a, amos eis en. And IR verbs end in o es a, imos is en. Now with cambios radicales, we have a stem change. So not only do we see the change in the root to show a subject, but we see a change in the stem. This only happens in some verbs. It doesn't happen in all verbs, and you have to memorize the ones that it happens in. There's not really a clue that lets you know whether or not it's a stem-changing verb. You just kind of learn it and then memorize it. In stem-changing verbs, we only have vowels that change. No consonants ever change to something else in a stem change specifically. And it is typically the vowel closest to your root that has the stem change. Some verbs are long and there's a few vowels in there. So the one that is closest to your root will be the one that you will stem change. And finally, the stem changes that we have are E to IE, O to UE, U to UE, and E to I. Today we're just going to focus on E to IE, O to UE, the most common stem change. And then there's only one U to UE that we're going to talk about. Okay, so cerrar is one of our stem changing verbs. So I've set it up so you can see the house chart here. Now, one thing you need to know is that cerrar is going to change E to IE. So notice where our vowel is, the only vowel in the stem, so that makes it easy for us. It's also the one closest to the root, obviously. That's where we're going to change E to IE. So this is what it looks like in the yo form. Yo cierro. So we keep our root ending. That stays the same in the present tense. So this is an AR verb, so we're going to have the AR endings. And we just attach that to our stem, which has the vowel change. The to form, cierras. El, ella, usted, cierra. And I'm going to skip over to ellas, ustedes, which is cierran. And let me explain why. Stem changing verbs can also be called something else. Boot verbs. So this idea of a boot verb comes from where the conjugations have the stem change. When you look at our house chart here and we see where we have the stem change in the yo, tu, el, and ellos forms, when you highlight it, as we did here in red, you see that it makes the shape of a boot. So this is also called a boot verb. So the only conjugations that have stem changers are in the boot. So, therefore, the subjects nosotros and vosotros do not take a stem change. So that E stays an E and does not change. So this is what your E to IE stem changes look like with your AR, ER, and IR endings. So 3 different examples are empezar, which means to begin, querer, which means to want, and preferir, which means to prefer. So in each instance, you see that the E closest to your root is the E that takes the stem change. So both in empezar and preferir, you have 2 E's, but it's the one closest to your root that takes your stem change. Also notice, in the nosotros and the vosotros forms, there is no stem change. So the E stays the same, and the only change that happens is in your root, which just shows us your subject. These are some other verbos de cambio radical, E to IE. Cerrar, which we went over, entender, which means to understand, comenzar, which also means to begin, convertir, to convert, pensar, which means to think or plan, perder means to lose, and encender means to light or turn on. We also have O to UE stem changing verbs, and this is an example with volver, which means to return. And this is talking about returning as in a person coming back somewhere. So we have one O in our stem, so that is the O that takes our stem change. And if you notice in the house chart, we already have our boot highlighted, so we know we are only stem changing within those subjects. Yo, tú, él, ella, usted, ellos, ellas, ustedes. So we have vuelvo, vuelves, vuelve, and vuelven. And then outside of our boot, where we do not have the stem change, we have volvemos and volves. So here you can see what a cambio radical, O-T-U-E, looks like with all three different root endings. So we have contar, which means to tell or to count, poder, can or able to, and dormir, to sleep. So these are all different examples where you can see the stem change with the root ending change. And again, nosotros and vosotros do not have a stem change. They are outside of the boot, so their O stays an O. These are some other verbos de cambio radical, O-T-U-E. We have almorzar, to eat lunch, morir, to die, mostrar, to show, colgar, to hang an item, mover, to move an object, probar, to taste or sample, costar, to cost, recordar, to remember, devolver, which might be past where you can see on the screen, but devolver is like volver, just with the DE in front of it, and that means to return an object. So like to the library or to take back a pair of shoes that don't fit, something like that, you would use devolver. Rogar, which means to beg, sonar, to sound or to ring, encontrar, to meet, soñar, with a tilde, means to dream, envolver, to wrap, volar, to fly, tostar, to toast, and morder, to bite. And finally, our U to UE verb is jugar. And this, like the other stem changing verbs, is also a boot verb. So in the boot, we have the U to UE change, juego, juegas, juega, juegan. And then outside of the boot, we keep the U. Jugamos, jugáis. Jugar means to play. Okay, so here is your práctica. Do this in the práctica section on your notes in the back if you need it. Buena suerte!